Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Valeo Values Podcast. I'm your host, Carter Hockman. Today's guest is the Director of Girls Program here at Valeo, Ariel Teixiera. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Ariel.
Thanks for having me, Carter.
So before we delve into everything, our first question here on the Valeo Values Podcast is, how did you get your start in soccer? Take us all the way back.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Warren, Rhode Island, very, very small town, obviously in a very small state. My dad grew up playing. He just recently stopped playing. I'm the youngest of four siblings, so we were always playing sports, soccer just being one of the main ones. Grew up through the town soccer league, the summer leagues, and then the fall and the spring, obviously. Just thriving in that environment. And then just watching my siblings play all the time sort of gave me that love for the sport. And then just went into the middle school season and then ended up obviously with high school and college soccer.
I mean, you mentioned you played a bunch of sports, and there's so many benefits to that, and sometimes it can even maybe take away from another sport's development. I mean, how much did that help or hinder your development, your specific development in soccer?
Yeah, I'm a big advocate for playing multiple sports. Being a college coach right now, I see the benefit of it. I grew up doing it. You can see the difference in some of the players that, we're recruiting at the moment. And honestly, you can just see the intangibles that come with playing multiple sports. Obviously, there has to come a point where you choose one, and one is your love for the sport. But I grew up playing basketball a lot through AAU basketball, and then eventually left that, realizing that soccer was going to be the main sport. So I joined the club side of soccer after that. But you can see there's things in basketball that go on that soccer players are sort of using it, whether it's, tactically or maybe just, your brain is just operating a little bit different or your body moves a different way. Sports, honestly, they just go hand in hand to each other.
I mean, you mentioned growing up in Warren, Rhode Island. I mean, what was the availability of soccer like for you? Was it easy access? Was it hard to find a team to play on? Was it mostly just in-town soccer? Was there club soccer available at an early age? Just talk me through that.
Yeah, in our town, obviously we were small. It was very limited. Luckily for us that we had a great environment as far as the talent level within our town. We're regionalized, so it's Bristol, Warren together. So we had a decent sized pool for that sense of things. So our level of play was always a little bit higher than some other town leagues. As far as reaching out a little bit further, there was some club offerings in the area, maybe around like Providence. I know once I joined the club scene, we were training out of Moses Brown, so a little bit further away. But it was readily available if I was putting myself out there to do it.
We'll touch on this in a minute, but how important is it to get that high quality training early in your youth development? I mean, from a parental standpoint, I feel like it has to be a difficult choice because there's the in-town youth soccer leagues, like we talked about, that are they're readily available, they're inexpensive, they're more based around fun, but those are mostly recreational, like I said, and being coached by the parents who signed up, who might not necessarily have that soccer background. I mean, don't get me wrong, that's where I got my start, and I had a blast, and my path still ultimately led to a Division I college team where I played all 4 years. I mean, this is a long way of asking, how do you choose between the weekend in-town sort of situation versus a club like Valeo where you're still able to have fun, but we do focus primarily on that development as well?
Right. You hit it right there. I started my upbringing with that side of it as well. I was invested in my town league for quite some time. It's like you said, it's fun. It's a sort of different environment. The parents are coaching you. The orange slices at halftime sort of vibe that it brings. That camaraderie and the town vibe that comes with it is obviously super enjoyable, especially at a very young age. Eventually, for myself, I just realized that I needed a little bit more. I needed to be challenged a little bit more. I saw soccer being a little bit bigger in my life, and that sort of made me take that approach to go towards the club environment. The training alone is just next level. The quality of coaches is obviously on a different level. And then the standard that is sort of required at that club level sort of makes you into a different type of person, not even just as a soccer player, but it allows you to just, build on different characteristics that you may not be able to get at the town level.
So, I mean, what kind of recommendation would you make to that parent that isn't quite sure about which path they should put their kid on? Because their kid might be, 3, 4, 5, 6 years old and not aware of what's available, and they're not sure, they're not making the decisions quite yet.
Right. I would just see what the kid is sort of feeling. A lot of these kids, you can tell when they're just loving the environment. Throw them into their town leagues, obviously, because they want to develop those friendships and they go to school with these kids, and then just have the conversation of where do they see themselves, fitting in at that town level, and do they see themselves, wanting to be challenged a little bit more. And these kids will tell you straight up how they're feeling. Kids these days are never shy of holding back on some of their thoughts. So I think just, having that conversation with your child, and if they feel like they want to be pushed a little bit, even at 7, 8, 9, that technical aspect of things is a little bit different at the club level, and that, I think, alone will add to their love for the game and obviously their development.
Moving back to your development as a player, a pivotal moment in a young player's career can be when they first get to the high school level. And I talked with this about the director of the boys program here, John Hablitz, as well. Talk to me about your experiences playing high school soccer, because you had a pretty lustrous career, and we're about to list some stuff, so bear with us. A 3-time All-State selection, including first team as a junior and senior, 2-time MVP and a team captain as a senior, 3-time first team all-division selection and all-region as a senior, and you also won a state championship. I mean, the accolades speak for themselves, but I mean, when you talk to athletes that have won all those types of awards, it always comes secondary to them. That's not what they're there for. I mean, talk to me about your development through high school.
Yeah, thank you for that lovely list there.
There's more to come. Don't worry. We haven't gotten to college yet.
The high school thing was interesting, actually. When I first got there, I'm very small, obviously, small in size, small in stature,
large in personality,
small there as well. When I got there as a freshman, I was even smaller. So my sister was on the team. She was a sophomore at the time, me coming in as a freshman. And again, our town was very small, so we're regionalized. But for some reason, when I entered my freshman year, there was no JV team, no freshman team, no JV team. It was just a varsity team. So everyone who sort of tried out made the varsity team. And I just felt like I never was given a proper chance to sort of, showcase myself. I was always one of the players that just never went into the game. Just always on the end of the bench. And there was literally times where I was the only player who didn't get into the game. And, seniors, captains, whomever would ask the coach, and he just felt like I was just too small. And unfortunately that happens. But my mentality and my attitude was literally always to just keep pushing and keep proving myself, because at some point I would have to get a chance. And if that chance never came, I could at least walk off the field feeling like I gave it everything that I had, and I was never going to be disappointed in that side of it. So eventually, we got a new coach my sophomore year. Whether that sort of had anything to do with it or not, we may never know, but it was sort of my saving grace, because that coach finally saw something in me that I was continuing to prove myself and my teammates that I think I deserve to sort of be on the field. And then obviously the rest was history from there. Absolutely.
And that's sort of a lesson to anybody who may be listening. And you're not always going to see eye to eye with a coach. Mm-hmm. They might not always understand that you have untapped potential. It was a sort of similar story in my situation where I was behind a goalkeeper who is, he was my age, but he had started on varsity as a junior while I was still on JV as a sophomore. And so those 2 years we were really battling. And then, there's a point where you feel like you surpass that talent, but they're going to go with what they trust. And that's just a situation where you described it perfectly. You need to find it within yourself to be like, all right, if they don't see it right now, I have to drive myself to get every ounce of potential out of myself, where even if they still don't see it, at least I've continued my development, you know?
Right. And that was sort of the mindset the entire time. I could have very easily, set my butt on the end of the bench and, wallowed in my tears and whatnot. And instead, if my name was eventually called, which it was occasionally, I went out there and proved myself, whether I got a goal or an assist. I was making sure that I was making my name known. Now, granted, I was pulled off the field after that, but we're not sure what was going on there.
Not to, we talked about your accolades, and not to humble you or anything, but I did win two Middlesex League regular season titles in high school. Thank you. But some kids like myself start on the freshman team, and I mean, your program didn't have a freshman team, but some kids start on the freshman team and then they get discouraged that they didn't make JV or varsity right away. I mean, what's a piece of advice? We kind of covered it, but what's a piece of advice that you give those kids that might think they won't have the ability to play at that next level if they don't make varsity or JV, or they don't play on JV or varsity right away?
Right. Everyone's process is sort of different. You may find yourself directly on varsity. You may find yourself on JV. You may find yourself on the freshman team and maybe not even getting minutes on the freshman team. But again, with my mindset, that helped me get to sort of where I saw myself being. That mindset is super important. You have to be able to find it within yourself, that you're just going to compete to the best of your ability, whether you get the chance or not, and sort of just have a belief that that chance will eventually come for you.
It's something that I talked a lot with John a couple weeks ago about. It's like, all right, where does the coach come into your development, and where do you come into your own development? And if you tell yourself that you're not going to play at the next level because you didn't start at the highest level right away in high school, you're probably right. And it's that quote that comes to mind. It's like, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. And that's where a lot of it, and that's one of the reasons I love being here at Valeo so much, is we tap that into you as like, hey, we want to build your development, but you also have to believe that you can do it yourself as well.
Right. There has to be an inner coach as well. And that can be tough sometimes, especially at a young age. And if you're not seeing success right away, and success can come in all different types of forms. It can come in, getting the goals and the assists. It can come in minutes alone.
It can come in training too.
It can come in training, right? You're seeing the success on the field in training. That a lot of times can bring you joy as well. For a player who may not be getting minutes on the field, prove yourself in training, because that is your game at the moment. That's your chance to sort of prove to your coach that maybe you may not be able to showcase it in a game, but you're treating this training session as your game, and that goes a long way in a coach's mind. Absolutely.
The next big moments in a player's career are after high school, deciding that you want to play at the next level in college or professionally, whatever path you want to choose, and B, starting that recruiting process. I mean, what did that look like for you coming out of Rhode Island?
Yeah, it was a little bit different. Again, I sort of was hesitant as far as which sport I wanted to play at the time. I spent a lot of time...
Humble brag.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time playing basketball growing up in Rhode Island. So that sort of took up a lot of my time, and, and again, invested a lot into it until I finally realized that soccer was going to be the venture. And that was late into my high school career, probably around my junior year, that I finally made the transition over to soccer a little bit more competitively. And so that delayed the recruiting process just a little bit. I finally was attending, college showcases with my new club team and things like that. So finally putting some feelers out there. And then eventually there was a coach at Southern New Hampshire University that's where I ended up going, but she was from my hometown. So she sort of recruited a bunch of us, or trying to recruit a bunch of us from my high school team, my senior year of high school. And the ball just sort of went rolling from there. We just didn't slow down. We visited the campus. We, did our tour, and we did our overnight visit, and it just felt like the right fit. So again, the process was a little bit unique, because it's not like I put many feelers out there and visited a ton of schools. It was sort of just, closed my eyes and pointed my finger and sort of landed on the perfect fit.
I'm jealous. I mean, for me, it was looking at, there's the obvious brand name schools that you want to go to, that, the big conferences, the big names, all the, the guys that are getting selected in MLS drafts are going here. And it's like, all right, well, that's fantastic for them, but I need to focus on where it's comfortable for me. I like the campus. I like the city. I like the town. I like the dorms. They offer my degree that I'm interested in. It's like, you're a student first, you're an athlete second, and that's what you need to focus on during your recruiting trips. But when you're 17, 18 years old coming out of high school, it's already an overwhelming time through the recruiting process. I mean, you're focusing still on finishing high school as you're starting that recruiting process, applying to colleges, looking for ID clinics, camps, making highlight reels, figuring out how to even email or talk to coaches. The important thing, at least for my recruiting process, was taking everything for every application and coach I was talking to one step at a time. I mean, what's the first thing you recommend everyone who's just starting the recruiting process do? What was your first step, and would you recommend doing it, or you would recommend doing it differently?
Yeah, you nailed it. The process is super overwhelming. Especially nowadays, I do not envy anyone going through the recruiting process at the moment. COVID has sort of mixed things up a little bit, as far as, delaying, prospects, delaying universities as far as how much they're able to recruit or weren't able to recruit a year or two ago. So things are sort of behind the times. So for those that are out there right now who, still don't know where they're going and they're a junior and senior, don't worry too much about it, because, again, it's just a little bit of a shift in how things are operating at the college level as well.
And even for someone like my own story, and I hate, interjecting with my own anecdotes here, but I didn't even commit to UMass Lowell until mid-July,
right,
which is less than a month before preseason starts. So every process is different. I'm going to say it directly into the microphone. Every process is different for everyone, and do not rush your decision. But we'll get back to that in a little bit. And I mean, am I correct in my understanding that the college recruiting process for girls starts a little bit earlier than it does for boys, or is they both start around junior year of high school?
Yeah, for some reason, the girls' game is just much earlier. It could be, no offense, but girls maturing a little bit quicker than boys. So they.
You're not wrong.
So they
into the camera. She's not wrong.
So they enjoy, sort of figuring out their path a little bit earlier. Boys are a little bit more laid back, where they want to go through their process a little bit slower, which is fine as well. And there are girls that are the same way. I committed December or January in my senior year, so I was late as well. So yeah, the girls' game, it's like sophomores are sort of figuring things out. By junior year, you see a lot of girls committing. And then if you're heading into your senior year, it's sort of seen as being late. But again, it's a stereotype. You mentioned it. Everybody's process is different. My process was different to yours. That can be different from John's, and so forth. So don't make it like it's a cookie cutter experience, because it is far from that. It is so unique for every single individual out there. Absolutely.
And it's one of those things, like, for me, I even thought I was going to be playing I thought baseball was going to be my sport for the longest time. I mean, and I almost, keyword is almost, regret how long I continued doing it versus when I decided to just focus on soccer. You sort of had a more realistic similar dilemma. I wasn't in the conversation of college for baseball. It was just the sport that I loved the most. But right. When would you, having had that direct experience, when would you recommend that if they're going to focus on soccer, they cut off the other sports and put all their energy into soccer?
Right. High school is different because, you have the availability to play multiple sports. And that's awesome. You should be, a 3-sport athlete is obviously something that is enjoyable. You're with your friends a lot. But like you're saying, to be able to focus on one, so investing a little bit more time, I would say as you're heading into the high school season, if earlier, even better, enjoy those sports and continue to play them at more of a recreational or for a fun experience to be with your friends and things like that. But as far as focusing and narrowing in on one, that around freshman year, you want to pick up that club experience. And again, if it's earlier, even better.
So before we get into your coaching career, I warned everyone that we're going to get into her college accolades here. Here's your career at Southern New Hampshire University.
Okay.
And in the briefest way I could put it, which is a paragraph, by the way. So you finished with 25 goals, 25 assists for 75 points. I want Ben, our wonderful editor, to focus in on her face as I'm reading all these. 75 points, putting you 7th in program history in assists and 10th in career points. Just the third 4-time all-conference recipient in program history. You were awarded the Northeast 10 first team honors in each of your final 3 seasons, and was named an NSCAA third team All-American as a senior. You were also a 3-time NSCAA first team all-region selection as a member of the NE10 all-academic team as a senior. What were some of the biggest things that kept you motivated to continue to develop? I mean, nobody's development is complete, even if you make it to the professional level. Because, I mean, a lot of players, and I'm sure you can attest, when they get to the college level, whether it be the Division 1, 2, 3, NAI levels, they'll rest on their laurels and they won't push themselves any further because, all right, I made it to, I'm a small percentage. I made it to an incredibly high level. I don't need to push myself any further. What motivated you to continue to push yourself and develop?
Yeah, honestly, I just wanted to win. At all costs. I'm a very big competitor. So the winning side of it sort of drew my attention to sort of keep pushing. At the end of the season, or even after every training session, after every game, I needed to make sure that I left it all out there. There were times that I literally had to be dragged off the field by people and thrown in an ice bath because, I just left my heart on the field, my groin on the field, my hamstring on the field, just
you do
leaving.
Not need to remind me.
Yeah, just leaving it all out there, just to sort of tell myself that I gave it all I got, or all I had.
My hips are still in lull.
Yeah, same. So once the end of the season came and the accolades came, it sort of reassured me that, what I put my body through and my mind through and everything, my heart through, it was all worth it. It was never on my mind to sort of, make sure that I was playing this way to get the accolades. It was more hindsight being like, okay, so that made all my work worth it. So again, it was just a mindset to just constantly keep pushing, to be my best self, to make sure my team was at its best potential.
Did you have a moment during or after your playing career ended that you knew you wanted to stay close to the game as a coach?
Yeah, I picked up an internship towards the end of my college career. I was an intern with the New England Revolution, where my brother was coaching at the time. And so that sort of led me to believe that it was sort of within me to be able to continue to do it. It wasn't until a little bit later on when I was inducted into my town hall of fame that that I'm, writing my speech, and I was just, thinking back on all these times of youth soccer at the rec level or at the club level, and just sort of remembering like so many great memories that I had as a child with my friends, winning games, losing games, the heartache that it all came with. And I was just like, soccer gave me so much that I felt like the best way that I could sort of give or show my appreciation was to give back to the sport that, I grew so much love for. So that sort of, it was a little bit, not delayed because I knew I wanted to get into coaching, but it wasn't until I was fully invested in it that I sort of was like, I owe soccer so much that, the best way I can show it is to sort of be that coach that I had, and, allow these girls and these players to create some memories that I can sort of help them in that direction.
You've been coaching at Southern New Hampshire University, your alma mater, for the last 10 years, if that's correct. I mean, along with coaching here at Valeo, which we'll get to shortly, what is a lesson or two that you learned as a player at SNU that you've now implemented into your own coaching style?
Yeah, you gotta sort of have fun with it. You gotta find a healthy balance of the competitive side of things and then just the plain old love for it. That goes a long way, because even as a coach, I tell the girls on the sideline all the time that, especially those who are injured, they find themselves that they can't help their team out. And as a coach, your words are the only thing that can sort of help. You can't go out there and play for them or play with them. So words are powerful, and, being able to just connect with these players and sort of just relax them a little bit to sort of remind them that it is just a game. Yes, we're competing, but it's a game, and we're sort of here to, direct them into competing, of course. But at the end of the day, if you're not having fun and enjoying what you're doing and having that love for the game, you're just going to be miserable. And who wants to be miserable playing, soccer? Soccer's supposed to be fun.
It is the beautiful game. I mean, Talk to me about a little bit how you landed here at Valeo.
Yeah, so there was a little connection with Carlton and myself. Carlton being the... Go ahead.
The director of operations.
I knew you had to go in. So we have some mutual friends, I guess you could say, as far as in our coaching circles.
Carlton doesn't have friends. What are you talking about? We love you, Carlton.
Our inner circles are intertwined slightly in the coaching circle. So he had reached out to our head coach at Southern New Hampshire University as their friends, because it's also Carlton's alma mater at New Hampshire College at the time. So that sort of established a relationship with myself, and just, starting a conversation as far as this job position being open. And after speaking with him a couple times and, hearing his philosophy, him hearing my philosophy and how I am as a coach, honestly, it was a perfect match. No-brainer to sort of jump on with Valeo at the time.
So we mentioned at the very start of the podcast that you are the director of the girls program here at Valeo. Talk to me a little bit about why girls should choose to either start or even just continue their youth development here at Valeo.
Yeah, if you're into the environment being fun, but also a little bit more competitive than your town is sort of providing you, this is a perfect fit for you. We have coaches that are here who have been here for a few years now that offer that to the program. We have brought in coaches who have added some more flavor and some more life and spunk to the group. And the addition to with these coaches provides these players with more of knowledge of the game that these coaches are sort of bringing in from their previous clubs or their college teams that they've been with. That alone is valuable stuff for these players. The development of these girls, and the boys obviously as well, is going to be taken to the next level just because of training alone. And I think that if you're sort of invested in soccer in that way, then Valeo is for sure for you.
It's pretty clear that there are some established clubs in Massachusetts that we don't want to say they specialize or they enhance girls' development more primarily than they do the boys. But I mean, why, from your perspective, should these girls that are in, the early stages of their development, or maybe even the later stages in high school, choose a club like Valeo over these clubs that are pretty large?
Yeah, and New England's a very interesting area because there are tons of clubs, and not even just the club itself, but there are tons of layers within each club. And one of the things that drew me to Valeo was the size of it, honestly. We're not trying to bring in a bunch of players just to make it a moneymaker. And no offense to these local clubs, but a lot of them are sort of using that tool as far as just bringing in players just for money. Valeo is not interested in doing that, which I love because we are strictly, invested in the individual player and their development within the club. And then that should take them to their next level on where they feel that they can fit in, in high school and at the club level.
Along with that, I mean, what's the biggest reason for you that makes Valeo unique from any other club that's out there?
The development of each player, the technical side of things, the technique at such a young age is crucial. And I feel like a lot of clubs sort of avoid that because all they're interested in is winning. For me, if I can develop my players to be technical players and then obviously eventually tactical at a certain age, the wins should be able to come with that. And if it doesn't, then I suppose shame on me as a coach, right? But these players should be able to have that technical and tactical base, technique at the minimum requirement to be, within, a value of a club. And again, a lot of these clubs are losing sight of that because they just want to win games and the kids want to win. So they're like, well, if my coach is only invested in winning and we just want to kick the ball long and go win games, then that's fun, right? Well, unfortunately, as far as you as a developing as a soccer player, it's winning is not an end all be all.
It's not the be all end all, and I think a good place to end it is, soccer is about fun and development. It's about, winning is great, but being a part of a family and a team that supports you and you can enjoy being around and you want to continue getting on the field because that's the thing that brings you joy every day. I think that's what Valeo is all about.
100%.
Ariel, I really want to thank you for hopping on the podcast today and sitting down with me.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
Thank you very much to those who have been listening and watching. This has been the Valeo Values Podcast. Thank you very much again to Ariel Teixiera for coming on. I have been your host, Carter Hockman. We'll see you guys next time.